Welcome to California Frontier, the show about the often overlooked and unexpected early history of the place we call California. I'm your host, Damian Basic. He was of gigantic stature, standing 6 feet 7 inches, without his stockings, for he had none. And he was large all over in proportion, with the strength of several men. His name by baptism was Francisco Solano, and by that name he was best known. And that is a quote from Platón Vallejo, the seventh son of General Mariano Vallejo, speaking about one of the most imposing figures in Mexican California, a man known as Chief Francisco Solano. When young Sina was baptized at Mission Dolores in 1810, he received the name Francisco Solano. Sina probably didn't know much about his patron saint, a Franciscan missionary in 17th century Peru, and he likely didn't know that someday people would call him Chief Solano. Sina Francisco Solano was born a member of the Suisun people. The Suisun were a Patwin-speaking community whose traditional homeland was on the edge of the San Pablo Bay, northeast of San Francisco. His fate resulted from a battle between the Suisuns and troops commanded by Gabriel Moraga, the Spanish officer who explored much of northern Alta California. Moraga's troops were a force of Spanish soldiers and Native Americans known as auxiliaries. Indian auxiliaries were a central part of Spanish military strategy since the time of the conquest of Mexico. At that time, thousands of native allies helped Hernán Cortés defeat the Aztecs. In California, native auxiliaries were mission Indians who accompanied soldiers on expeditions or in battles. After some time at Mission Dolores, Francisco moved to the newly founded Mission San Francisco Solano in Sonoma. At Sonoma, his status grew. He rose to become an alcalde, or native leader of the mission community. Alcaldes were responsible for maintaining order in the mission, working with the padres, and making sure tasks were accomplished. The young man eventually caught the attention of General Mariano Vallejo. Vallejo was the Mexican military commander of the northern frontier. The commander was particularly impressed with Francisco Solano's leadership as a member of the auxiliaries. Auxiliaries played a key role in General Vallejo's strategy in northern Alta California. His goal was to keep the Russians from moving any further south than Bodega Bay, and to incorporate local Indian tribes into the Mexican Republic. Solano seems to have excelled in his military duties, and numerous native troops were put under his command. According to his widow, Isadora Filomena, Solano commanded 8,000 warriors, quote, armed with flint daggers, flint lances, and flint arrows, unquote. It was even said that Solano was commissioned a captain in the Mexican army. Solano's auxiliaries made up the bulk of the troops in Vallejo's expeditions. But he was also a political leader, a key figure in establishing peace between native groups and Vallejo. One of the most famous cases was that of the Satiyomi people of northern Sonoma County, who had been implacable foes of General Vallejo. With Francisco Solano's help, both on and off the battlefield, the Satiyomi were convinced to make peace in 1837. Over the years, as Vallejo sought to consolidate Mexican rule north of San Francisco, he often turned to Solano for aid in bringing different native groups into alliances or submission. Solano's reputation grew, not only among indigenous people, but also among Californios. Dorotea Valdez, who grew up in Monterey in the 1800s, recalled seeing Solano and his auxiliaries in her city. Quote, "When Solano visited Monterey, I was living with Senora Prudencia Mesti. Solano and his Indians all rode fine horses. They all had hakimas, but few of them had saddles. Their hair was long, and they carried bows and arrows. Their looks inspired fear in everybody." Unquote. Another Californian who describes Solano's impressive appearance was Platón Vallejo. Platón, the son of General Mariano Vallejo, knew Solano when he was young. Platón described him as tall and robust, quote, "savage in some things, but also a keen, clear-headed thinker," unquote. According to Platón, his father, quote, "always held Solano not alone as an ally, but as a personal friend and equal," unquote. Platón's recollections were particularly colorful. He gives his own version of how Solano and Vallejo met. As Platón relates it, there was a battle between the Suisuns, led by Francisco Solano, and Mexican troops led by General Vallejo. In Platón's story, Vallejo's forces routed Solano's warriors, but the two, quote, "entered into an alliance and a treaty of goodwill," unquote. His account, however, seems to be at odds with mission records that register Solano's baptism at Mission Dolores in 1810, and later service at Sonoma. Solano's reputation among Mexican Californians offered benefits in his later years. Governor Juan Bautista Alvarado granted Francisco Solano 4 square leagues, approximately 17,000 acres, known as Rancho Suisun. Solano had been occupying the land as early as 1837, located on the traditional territory of his people. In 1842, he seems to have sold the rancho to General Vallejo, who in turn later sold it to an American ship captain, Archibald Ritchie. The city of Fairfield, California, eventually came to occupy much of Solano's old rancho. What became of Francisco Solano in his later years is something of a mystery. Platón Vallejo's memoirs state that after his father's capture during the Bear Flag Revolt in June of 1846, Solano left Sonoma. Reportedly filled with grief at his friend's fate, the native leader wandered far and wide, possibly as far as Alaska. Platón says that Solano resurfaced in 1858, arriving at the Vallejo home in Sonoma. He spent several days visiting with his old friend and ally, the general, then continued on to his homeland in Cordelia, California. According to Platón, Solano died soon after. Other sources report that Solano died as early as 1850. In Solano, the Crossroads County, An Illustrated History, author Frank Keegan offers an alternative to Platón's account. He states that Samuel Martin, an American who had come to California during the gold rush, met Solano in 1850 at Rancho Suisun. Martin claimed that the aged warrior passed away soon afterwards, and that his family buried him under a nearby buckeye tree. Whether he died in 1850 or 1858, we know that Solano did not live long into the era of U.S. California. When historian Hubert Howe Bancroft sent researchers to interview his widow, Isadora Filomena, in 1874, her husband had been dead for many years already. It was Platón's father, Mariano Guadalupe Vallejo, who spread Chief Solano's fame among English speakers. In 1850, Vallejo wrote a report to the California State Senate on the origin of California's county names. In it, he describes Solano County as the home of, quote, "the great chief of the tribes originally denominated Suisuns," unquote. According to the general, quote, "before receiving the baptismal name of Solano, the chief was called Semyato, which signifies brave or fierce hand," unquote. The legend of Chief Solano, originally Semyato, was born. With time, the legend surrounding Chief Solano grew, fueling early 20th century attempts to locate his grave. Researchers focused on finding the remains of his supposedly 6'7" frame, but to no avail. In 1934, A 12-foot tall statue of Chief Solano was unveiled in front of the Solano County Library in the city of Fairfield. It still stands there today, although the library is now the Solano County Events Center, and it is one of the very few statues dedicated to a Native American Californian. In 1971, the Native Sons of the Golden West installed a plaque to commemorate Chief Solano's burial place. The plaque is located on the campus of Solano Community College in Rockville, California, where local lore says the buckeye tree under which Chief Francisco Solano's remains were buried used to stand. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the California Frontier Show. If you'd like to support the show, the best thing to do is to let other people know about it. If you'd like to support it monetarily, there are a couple ways of doing that. One is by scrolling down in your podcast app to where it says support the show. There you can become a subscriber for as little as $3 a month. And if you want to give a one-time donation, just below you'll see where it says give a one-time donation. Finally, the show is supported by California History Teachers, which is a full year of lessons for 4th grade California history and social studies. You can find out more at www.californiahistoryteachers.com. And if you input the coupon code PODCAST, you'll receive 25% off your monthly or annual subscription. So check it out.